I loved it. I thought this was the game winner. I woke up everyone in the house when he made this play. But it was wiped away. We would never even remember it because this guy, OG, who's known for his defense, bangs a three in the corner. Like, this was a significant moment in a game, significant moment that could have been on Kemba's highlight reel for the rest of his life, and now we'll never talk about it again after this day. Terrible.
Well, that's why, because of this, Nick, OG to the rescue for the Raptors, same game.
Yeah, maybe a more significant moment for NBA history than this made three is I think, the official death of guarding the inbounder if there's less than a second left. If a 7'5" guy can't distract the inbounder in this situation, then you're just wasting a defender. I don't think you have a defensive breakdown if it's 5 versus 4 if you're not using Taco Fall as a giant obelisk in front of Kyle Lowry. So I don't think we're going to see guys guard the inbounder in this situation ever again, Jenna. At least they shouldn't.
Wow, that's a great take.
Moving on. Kevin, runs in the family. Tell us what you got.
Hey, Frank Gore Jr. made his debut yesterday. And it reminds me of Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. hitting back-to-back home runs for the Mariners. Now we got Frank Gore Sr. and Frank Gore Jr. playing football. So it's a great moment for all fathers and sons out there. It's just, in general, awesome. Congratulations to the Gore family.
Nice.
All right,
That's awesome.
Good stuff. Finally, I love this cute little doink pass from Jordan Love that went viral yesterday. Why did it go viral? Exactly. Why did a backup quarterback who made a pass like that go viral? That's my point. This poor guy, Jordan Love, all he wanted to do was be drafted, get to the NFL, play football. Instead, he gets wedged between the great Green Bay Packers and the great Aaron Rodgers. I say you do you, Jordan Love. You ricochet your balls off anything you want, and you leave all that drama to the Packers organization. Stick with being a backup quarterback. All right, let's move on. Talk some basketball now. On to Brooklyn bound. The Nets announced the hiring of Hall of Fame point guard Steve Nash as their new head coach yesterday. The 46-year-old comes in with no coaching experience, but built a great relationship with Kevin Durant when he was a consultant with the Warriors. Nets guard Spencer Dinwiddie took to Twitter after the announcement saying, y'all wanted a third star. So, Nick, let's start by talking about fit. How does Steve Nash fit with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving? Because that's going to be the big question when it comes to the success of this Brooklyn team.
I have no idea whatsoever, and neither does anybody, because he's never coached a game in his life. Now, is this the right hire? Maybe. Like, we have seen this work before. Steve Kerr, while he was an executive for 6 years and a broadcaster, and then stepped into a head coaching gig, and they won the title. And Steve Kerr, by the way, had the courage of his convictions right when he got there. David Lee, highest paid player on the team, you're to the bench. And Draymond Green, you're taking the job. And by the way, Draymond, you and I might have a prickly relationship, but I can deal with it. Ty Lue, when he took over after being an assistant in the interim role for David Blatt, not only did he win a title, Game 7, halftime, NBA Finals. Ty Lue looked LeBron James in his eyes and said, got to do more. We need more from you, man. And those are from Kerr benching Lee to Ty Lue standing up to LeBron at halftime of Game 7 of the Finals. That's the question for Steve Nash. Is he going to be able to do the tough part of coaching? We know he is one of the most brilliant offensive minds the league's ever seen. He's now with another brilliant offensive mind in Kevin Durant and another really good offensive mind in Kyrie Irving. So it should work as far as scoring a ton of points, being a ton of fun. But this team, Brandon, goes into next season as the favorites in the Eastern Conference. It is win right now. And we're seeing in the playoffs, you're going to deal with Nick Nurse on the other sideline. You're going to deal with Brad Stevens on the other sideline. You're going to deal with some great other coaches. And it is, I'm not saying the Nets made the wrong move. I'm not saying they made the right move. They were always going to hire who Kevin Durant told them to hire. Kevin Durant told them to hire Steve Nash, so they hired Steve Nash. But it is a hell of a risky gamble to put a team that is win right now in the hands of a guy who's never coached any game, assistant or head coaching in the NBA, Brandon?
Perfect coach for this team. It's easier for a player to make the transition to coach in the NBA than it is for the NFL. There's much less to manage. So I think that he'll do a phenomenal job. He's always been that player coach. He's been that guy on the court that's been that general. So I'm not concerned about that. I think the most important thing here is KD and Kyrie. They wanted him. KD wanted this guy, right? So when you look at this dynamic, that's the most important thing because Steve, they know how to win championships. They've done that. Now what they need is a guy that they can trust. And that's the most important thing in the locker room. When you look at the most important attribute that a player needs when he looks at his coach is, can I trust you? Do I respect you? And there's no one that's more respected in the NBA than Nash. So, Wiles, I don't know how you feel about this, but I know your feelings could be possibly hurt because you wanted Pop in this position.
Yeah, no, I always thought the Pop was an interesting, creative writing exercise for some journalists, but I never thought it actually had a chance. But it was interesting. Look, for a team that's championship or bust, I think it's extra fascinating. And Steve Nash's resume is great, but it does have one hole in it, Nick. Look, 2-time MVP, 8-time All-Star, 5-time assist leader, the architect of sort of modern basketball with D'Antoni and those Suns. Well-liked and respected around the league.
No finals appearances.
Never won. Not even an appearance. That's right. So when we look at Steve Kerr, Steve Kerr came in with 5 rings. Ty Lue had 2 rings that he could be like, listen, I've been here, guys. Yeah. So I don't know if it rears its head ever, but it is worth noting that Durant and Kyrie are champions and their coach is not. And granted, maybe Kyrie's like, hey, I want to be the MVP or I want to be assist leader. But when it comes to that championship pedigree, Durant and Kyrie have to lead rather than their coach.
Well, I agree 1,000% with that. And listen, I want to reiterate the point I made a moment ago. Kevin Durant chose this. I don't know if that's good or bad, but the Nets have given the organization over to Durant. And by the way, when you have a chance to get one of the 3 best players in the league, that is what you do. But they signed Kyrie because Durant wanted them to. I would argue they got rid of Kenny Atkinson when they did because Durant and Kyrie wanted them to. They signed DeAndre Jordan, and they insist he starts over, I think, a superior player, Jared Allen, because these guys wanted him to. And so my only concern, Brandon, would be, and tell me if you disagree, I would think part of being a great head coach in any sport is the ability to deal with conflict, lean into conflict, and have tough conversations. And when you have the job because this guy picked you, I do wonder if there's a bit of a, well, how much can I tell KD if it seems, and it's not that he often doesn't play well, but for whatever reason isn't doing what we need to do to get it together when KD is the one who brought him there, Brandon.
Oh, he's going to have a bigger opportunity to hold these guys accountable. When you respect someone, and that guy can hold you accountable. Okay. So it's that notion of not being able to rock the boat or really call this guy out in front of everyone else, it's wrong because that creates a more vulnerable situation where guys sit down and they have real conversations. But Wiles, you mentioned something that was interesting. You talked about he hasn't won anything. Well, how the hell is he going to win anything when he's going against Kobe and Shaquille every single year? He's going against Duncan and Ginobili and Pop. Like, that takes nothing. We can't take anything away from this guy. This guy is a champion. He's a winner. He's well respected, and he's going to do a phenomenal job in New York.
Yeah, that's fair. That might be like the ring counting might be more of a media narrative than it is on the court. So I think that might be a fair point. I just thought it's interesting that, you know, some players with championship pedigree seem to have an easier time becoming coaches than players without.
All right, there's one other angle to this that I think has to be addressed. And let me back up first. One of the reasons I love math the way I do is because it's totally unemotional. There's no biases involved. It translates across languages, and everyone can understand it. And so I'm going to try to use math to talk about a really sensitive subject. Because the moment this hire happened, our friend Stephen A. Smith went on television and said, this is an example of white privilege. A white player retiring, walking right into not only a head coaching job, but this level of head coaching job. And he, of course, immediately got a ton of very loud pushback. And one of the people who said something that I thought what they said was interesting was Danny Cannell, another friend of ours. Danny said, it's not white privilege, it's former player privilege, meaning that it's guys who used to play have the easy way in. So let's look at, for a moment, the former players who are coaches in this league. There's 9 of them. Does that to you look like what the NBA looks like? The NBA is about 80% black, around 20% white. That's 7 white former players, 2 black former players. So here's why I bring up math, because I know people get all hot under the collar whenever anyone talks about race. We actually can break this down mathematically. What are the odds in a league that has about 20% white players that 7 out of 9 of the former player turned coaches would be white? Well, I'm sure like you guys, or I'm sure like me, you guys all know how to do a binomial probability. So you take a 20% chance of something, you take 9 trials, and you say, what are the odds this would happen 7 times or more if it's just pure randomness? And you type that into your calculator, and the answer is 0.03%. The odds of, in a league that's 20% white, having 7 out of the 9 former players turned coaches randomly be white guys is about 3 in 10,000. So I say all that to say this. This is not calling the Nets racist. This is not saying that Steve Nash is the wrong hire. But clearly, Brandon, there is an issue when it comes to who ownership and front offices see as can be the leader of my team, the face of my team, even when we were choosing from the pool of guys who played. And so that is not accusing anyone of any intentional outright racism. That's just looking at the numbers and saying there is something at play here that isn't just, the idea of meritocracy that the best man got the job every time.